Have you ever wondered if perhaps your greatest act of courage today is to give up? Giving up on carrying pains that are no longer yours, on keeping up appearances that exhaust you, on insisting on stories that have lost their meaning. In this video, I want to show you why letting go of what weighs you down is not a failure. It's wisdom, it's freedom. If you're over 60, you've seen the world change, faced losses, and overcome battles. And maybe it's time for a new victory, peace of mind. Today, I want to talk to you heart to heart about 8 situations where giving up could be the best choice of your life. There comes a time in life when we stop chasing what no longer makes sense. A moment when, for the first time, we realize we don't need to prove anything to anyone. That we can simply rest. And for many of us, that moment comes with age. But the curious thing is, while the body slows down, the mind, if nurtured with serenity, matures like wine that only time can refine. And that's when one of life's greatest wisdoms is born. Accepting our own limits. Giving up sometimes isn't a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it's a sign that we've finally understood that fighting what can't be changed is a waste of precious energy. I know. The word giving up still carries weight. We were taught from childhood to persist, insist, resist. But few told us there's also nobility in stopping. That recognizing something no longer fits in our lives can be an act of love for ourselves. As we age, our bodies change. That's a fact. Climbing stairs isn't as easy. A sleepless night takes a heavier toll, and the energy that once seemed endless now comes with clear limits, and that's okay. The mistake lies in judging ourselves for it, in thinking that losing some physical strength means losing our worth. It doesn't. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because if the body weakens, the soul can finally flourish. But for that, it takes courage. Courage to let go of the idea that we're still the same as we were 20 or 30 years ago. Courage to accept that maybe that activity which once brought us joy, like traveling long distances, taking care of everything and everyone around us, or even overworking, no longer fits. And it's okay if it doesn't. Because when we let go, we make space. And in that new, often quiet space, lies a peace that youth, with all its haste, could never understand. There's beauty in pausing. There's wisdom in saying, this is no longer for me. There's dignity in no longer forcing the body and mind to fit old molds. Aging isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. An invitation to look at life with more depth, more kindness, more compassion for oneself. And in that invitation often lies the proposal to let go. To release expectations, burdens, and demands we've carried for years, and which now only make us tire faster, breathe harder, sleep less soundly. It's not about abandoning dreams, but about adapting the path. About listening to the body like you'd listen to an old friend, with respect. Because it's speaking. It's saying that now is the time for other priorities. For walking slower, for appreciating more, for seeking truer relationships and quieter moments. And in this new rhythm, life reveals a different glow. A gentle but steady glow. Like the light of late afternoon, less intense, but more welcoming, accepting. Our limitations is in truth an act of clarity. It's admitting we've fought enough, that we've proven enough, that now is the time to reap, and there's no shame in resting. In saying, I can't handle this anymore. In refusing what demands too much of us. In putting our own health, physical, emotional, and spiritual first. This isn't giving up on life. It's starting over in a different way, lighter, more present. So, the next time you feel guilty for no longer being able to do everything as before, take a deep breath and remember, you're not losing. You're evolving. You're finally allowing yourself to live in a way that makes sense for who you are today, not who you were yesterday. And that, my friend, is wisdom in its purest form. Letting go of dreams that no longer serve you. There's A kind of attachment few people talk about: attachment to old dreams. The ones we've carried for decades as if they were part of our identity. Plans born when we were young, full of strength, full of haste, and which stayed with us so long. They became a silent burden. But not every dream is meant to last a lifetime. Some were only meant to push us forward for a time. And it's okay to let them go. It's hard to accept that certain goals have simply lost their shine. Maybe because they were fueled more by others' expectations than by our own true will. Or because they came from an older version of ourselves, one that no longer exists. Life is made of cycles, and there's wisdom in recognizing when a cycle ends. Continuing to insist on something that no longer makes sense is like watering a plastic flower. No matter how much effort you put in, it will never bloom. How many people keep living trapped in an image of what they should have been? How many keep trying to achieve something just because it's too late to give up? But if time has passed and the desire hasn't blossomed, maybe the dream has already served its purpose. Maybe it was only meant to bring you this far and no further. And that's not failure. That's maturity. It's like the farmer who recognizes when a field has given all it can, and then plants something new in different soil. I once met a woman who spent 40 years trying to open a sewing studio. She worked, saved, made plans, dreamed. But life pulled her in another direction: children, bills, unexpected events, and the dream was always postponed. One day, nearly 80 years old, she told me with serene eyes, I realized my dream wasn't to open a studio. It was to sow in peace. And I already do that at home. She had transformed the dream. Not given up in the usual sense, but let go of the rigid way she'd clung to it. There's freedom in recognizing that yesterday's dream doesn't have to be today's burden. That we can look back with fondness, thank that desire for moving us forward, and then let it go. As they say in the countryside, we reap what we sow, but we also need to know when to till the soil again. There's beauty in starting over even if the restart doesn't carry the same excitement of youth. Instead, it holds something more valuable: peace of mind. Letting go of an old dream opens space for something we may never have considered. The simple pleasure of living without hurry, without pressure, without unreachable goals. Sometimes, life's greatest dream is learning to be content with what you already have. And that dream, so often forgotten, begins to grow when we stop insisting on versions of ourselves that no longer represent who we are. So, if there's a dream you've been carrying for years, but it only brings weight, exhaustion, and frustration, maybe it's time to talk to it. Not with guilt, not with sadness, but with gratitude. Look at it and say, thank you for accompanying me this far. Now it's time for me to move on in peace. You're not giving up on your life. You're just freeing yourself from an expectation that no longer fits who you are. And that, often, is the most beautiful way to find yourself again. Letting go of toxic relationships. There comes a time in life when we start to realize that not every bond needs to be kept. That not every companionship is good just because it's nearby. The truth is, some relationships, whether romantic, familial, or friendships, stop being a source of support and become a source of exhaustion. And in that moment, we need to ask ourselves a simple but powerful question: is it really worth continuing? Youth often teaches us to endure, to swallow our pride, to keep up appearances, to believe that cutting ties is selfish. But time, it shows us something else. It teaches us that inner peace is too precious to waste trying to fix what doesn't want to be fixed. That clinging to relationships that diminish us is a subtle and cruel way of abandoning ourselves. Walking away from a toxic relationship isn't a lack of love. Most of the time, it's an act of self-love. It's realizing that certain people make us sick, that some words, even spoken softly, cut deep, that some presences, even silent, weigh us down. And no amount of justifying someone else's behavior matters when we're already suffocating. Some people only learn to respect us when they lose the right to hurt us. I once met a man who, at 74, decided to cut ties with his older brother. His entire life, he'd tried to maintain a cordial relationship, even though all he received was criticism, disdain, and cruel comparisons. But he's family, people told him. You have to forgive. And he did forgive, but he suffered. One day, after yet another humiliation disguised as advice, he calmly said, "Enough. I refuse to spend the little time I have left feeling small." And he walked away, without anger, without drama. Just walked away. Today, he says he's never slept more peacefully. We need to understand that protecting ourselves isn't ingratitude. That's saying no to those who only take isn't selfish. Some bonds are toxic because they're built on control, envy, manipulation, or emotional dependency. And the longer we spend trying to fix what's rotten at the root, the further we drift from ourselves. Sometimes you have to cut off a branch to save the whole tree. Letting go of a toxic relationship allows our soul to breathe. It lets our days regain their lightness. It makes space in our hearts for what truly matters: genuine affection, mutual listening, sincere presence. This isn't about isolating ourselves from the world. It's about choosing more wisely who we let in, because we no longer have time to waste on what hurts us under the guise of love. Here's a hard but necessary truth. Some people only love us the way they know how, and sometimes that way is destructive. It's not our job to teach others how to love. It's our job to protect the sacred space of our inner peace, and if necessary, to walk away. Without guilt, without hatred. Just with the serenity of someone who's realized their emotional well-being is worth more than any social or familial obligation. So if you're in a relationship that dims your light, drains your joy, or makes you doubt yourself, maybe it's time to reconsider, to step back, or even to leave. Because life, at this stage, has already taught us enough. And one of its greatest lessons is this: those who truly love you don't weaken you, they strengthen you. And those who destroy you, even with sweet words, don't deserve such an intimate place in your journey. Stopping the worry over others' judgments. Few prisons are as silent as the fear of what others think. We spend much of our lives trying to meet expectations that aren't even ours. We act as if there's an invisible audience watching our every move, ready to applaud or boo each choice. And so we smother our desires, silence our instincts, and become strangers in our own lives, all to seem acceptable in the eyes of people who often don't even know us. But there comes a time, usually when the hair turns gray and the soul grows weary, when this stops making sense. You wake up and realize much of your story was written trying to please people who'll never truly understand the life you've lived inside. And that's when liberation begins, when others' opinions start losing their weight, when you allow yourself to be exactly who you are, without needing applause to exist. Judgment from others is like the wind. It'll always blow from some direction, rarely the one you'd prefer. If you speak loudly, they'll call you dramatic. If you're quiet, they'll say you're cold. If you laugh too much, you're silly. If you don't laugh, you're bitter. In other words, no matter what you do, there'll always be someone ready to criticize. And often, that says more about them than about you. Criticism usually stems from others' frustration, people who lack the courage to live their own lives and instead try to shape yours. I remember a woman in her 80s who decided to dye her hair purple. Yes, purple. People whispered, laughed, gossiped in the building's hallways, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. One day, someone asked, "Aren't you ashamed?" She replied, "I'd be ashamed to live a life where I couldn't even choose my own hair color." That stayed with me, because she understood something many never grasp. The only person we need to make peace with is ourselves. When you stop worrying about others' judgments, you start really living. You make choices based on your truth, your timing, what truly brings you joy, and life takes on a new hue. You dress how you want, speak as you are, pursue what matters to you, even if it seems odd to others. Because in the end, no one else has walked your path, no one has carried your pain. No one wakes with your worries or sleeps with your thoughts. Only you know what it means to be you. And that's enough. Besides, most of the people who concern us today will forget us tomorrow. The criticism, the comments, the sideways glances, they all fade with time. But the regret of not living your truth, that lingers, and it's heavy. So free yourself. Give yourself permission to make choices that reflect you, even if they surprise others. Say no without justifying. Say yes with your whole heart. And learn to smile even when others frown. The peace that comes from living in alignment with who you are is priceless. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek attention. It simply quiets the outside noise and strengthens your inner voice. And when that voice starts guiding your steps, you discover something precious. There's no greater freedom than being whole, even if it unsettles others. And sometimes, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is to stop seeking approval. And finally, be real. Giving up on trying to please everyone. For much of our lives, we've been taught to be agreeable. To say yes even when we wanted to say no. To smile when we were sad. To make concessions in the name of keeping the peace. And without realizing it, we reshape ourselves piece by piece until we become diluted versions of who we truly are, all in the name of acceptance, of validation, of others' love. But the problem is, the more we try to please everyone, the further we drift from ourselves. There comes a time, usually after years of silence, sacrifice, and living more for others than for ourselves, when this need for approval starts to hurt. The soul grows weary, the body sends signals, and the heart, quietly, begins to cry for help. At this point, a choice emerges. Keep living to be well regarded, or start living to find peace. And that's when giving up on pleasing everyone reveals itself, not as weakness, but as an act of courage. It's impossible, and always has been, to please everyone. Because people expect different, often contradictory things. Some want you to stay quiet. Others want you to speak up. Some expect strength. Others, vulnerability. And as you try to meet all these demands, you fracture. You erase yourself. You lose your essence trying to fit into others' molds. But living this way is like trying to fill everyone else's cup from an empty pitcher. Giving up on pleasing everyone doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means becoming whole. It means choosing honesty over convenience. It means saying yes only when that yes doesn't cost your peace. And saying no with the calm of someone who knows that setting. Boundaries is an act of love. Because when you respect yourself, you teach others to do the same. I remember a man who spent his life trying to be the family's pillar. Always present, always accommodating, always willing, even when he had no strength left. Until one day, his body forced him to stop. A stroke left him partially disabled. Only then did he begin to reflect, did I ever live for myself? And the answer came with tears, no. He had spent his life trying to keep everyone happy while his own happiness was postponed. Always for later. Life doesn't wait. And the truth is, no matter how much you sacrifice for others, someone will always be dissatisfied. There will always be criticism. Someone will always say you could have done more, been more, given more. But you've already done too much, already given too much. And maybe now it's time to give yourself something, the right to be human. Imperfect, honest, free from the obligation to please. When you stop living for others and start living for yourself, you don't become less generous, you become more authentic. Your presence stops being an effort to please and starts being a genuine gift. Relationships grow truer. Conversations feel lighter. Decisions align with what you feel, not what others expect. To some, you might seem different, quieter, firmer, more selective. But in your own eyes, you'll finally recognize yourself. And that's priceless. It's like coming home after years spent in places where you never belonged. Giving up on pleasing everyone means choosing, at last, to please the most important person in your life, you. And when you please yourself, respect yourself, embrace yourself, everything around you begins to realign. Some people walk away, others draw closer. But what matters most is that, inside you, something settles. And that peace is worth more than any external approval. Letting go of the need to control everything. There's a kind of suffering that grows slowly, almost imperceptibly, but deepens over the years. The pain of trying to control the uncontrollable. Life, people, the future, health, love, loss. How often do we carry this burden, demanding that everything go according to plan, as if we could stop time, prevent storms, or hold back falling leaves? But life doesn't ask for control. It invites surrender. Many of us spend decades gripping the reins too tightly. We measure our words to avoid conflict. We nurse resentments to keep a false peace. We craft meticulous routines to prevent surprises. We design precise expectations. And in the end, everything changes. People leave. Health falters. Plans fail. And reality reminds us once again that we were never the authors of this story. This is hard to accept, because we grew up believing that if we did everything right, everything would work out. But maturity, the kind that only comes with time, shows us that life is full of twists, surprises, and abrupt changes beyond our control. There are no guarantees, no manual, there's only now. And the present can't be controlled, only lived. I remember a man who spent his life meticulously planning his retirement. Bills paid, health insurance secured, everything accounted for. But at 67, he lost his wife unexpectedly. It shattered everything. With tears in his eyes, he told me, "I controlled everything except what mattered most. And now I'm learning to live with what's left." And he did. Not by regaining control, but by learning to let go. Letting go isn't giving up. It's trusting that life has its own wisdom. That not everything has to go our way to be good. That sometimes the greatest insight lies in allowing things to unfold naturally. In accepting that others' timing differs from ours, that their choices aren't ours to make. That illness, goodbyes, and silence are all part of the dance. Giving up control means allowing life to happen with its imperfect beauty, its crooked days, its surprising paths. It's learning to breathe in chaos, to find serenity even without answers, and to realize that peace doesn't come from having everything in hand, but from knowing that even in uncertainty, you'll keep going. There's a softness that emerges when we release, when we stop fighting the current, when we accept that some things will unravel while others bloom without our force. And in that space where control dissolves, something rare appears: trust in life. Not naive trust, but trust tempered by time, pain, and experience. When you look back, you'll see so much good happened unplanned. People arrived without warning. Joy sprouted in ordinary days. Strength surfaced when reserves seemed empty. All of it taught you that life, though unpredictable, takes care of us if we let it. So if something is stealing your peace because you can't control it, maybe it's time to release it. To trust time. To do your part with presence, not obsession. Because in the end, what remains isn't control, it's acceptance. The serenity of knowing that even if the path shifts, you'll still find your way. And that letting go of control might be the first step toward living lighter, truer, and more fully. Sometimes what we need most is to let go. Let go of what hurts us, what holds us back, what keeps us from breathing freely. Because life, that unpredictable companion, asks less for heroism and more for listening. Less perfection, and more truth. If you've made it this far, perhaps you're in one of those moments when everything inside you is calling for change. Maybe you're tired of trying to maintain control, please everyone, or hold together broken relationships. Maybe your heart is whispering what your mind still resists accepting. It's time to release, and that's okay. You're not weak for this. You're wise. Now I invite you to pause. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you can. Feel what needs to be released, what's weighing you down. And say to yourself, I give myself permission to let this go, because I love myself enough to choose peace. And if this video has touched you in any way, share it. Someone you love might need to hear exactly this. Leave a comment, tell me, what are you ready to let go of? Let's grow together. Let's age with more courage, more lightness, more truth. Because letting go, when chosen wisely, can be the greatest act of wisdom in our existence.